screen. Yesterday we discussed about the business rule. Okay, so a piece of JavaScript code is executed when table is queried. A record is inserted, updated, deleted, or displayed. At that time, that logic was executed and it performed the database operations on the platform. So these business rules are classified into four types. Okay, before business rule, after business rule, async business rule, and display business rule. So based on the database operation, these business rules are executed like insert, update, delete, and query. So where we can see these options in the business rule formats and when to run section. Okay, there is a when field in the drop down. We can see all these options. So what we can do with help of the business rule means, okay, we can perform many actions with help of the business rule, like concatenate the fields, update the fields, and create or update any related records. We can set some field values and generate events. We can send notifications. Okay. Also, we can initiate the integration. Okay, with to third-party applications. So these things we can do with help of the business rules. And when before business rule logic is executed, okay, before business rule logic is executed, okay, so when record is inserted, okay, like that means when user submit the form, okay, and data is not saved in the database, okay, that is nothing but user submit the form, record is going to inserted into the database. In between time, our before business rule logic is executed. If business rule logic is evaluates true, then it allows to insert data in database. Otherwise, it will deny the operation. What action you want to perform before data is stored into the database? That action is executed. Okay. So before business rule logic is executed, before data is stored into the database, user submitted, and before data is stored into the database, at that time only before business rule logic is executed. If we observe this picture, user submit the first image, user submit the form, then is going to stored into the database. In between there is a check. This is nothing but before business rule. This before business rule is validating the code or validating the form or concatenating field or whatever anything, sending notifications, which configuration we configured, that is executed, okay, in the before business rule logic. If you are validating some fields, for example, date field, for example, phone number format, for example, email format, you are checking. Those are not in your expected format. Then before business rule logic, it treat that is the invalid data. So it simply deny the operation. That means it cannot allow the data into the database. It deny the operation. So these things we can do in the before business rule. We can, with help of the before business rule, what we can do means create the events for email notifications, and we can abort any record, okay, any action we can abort it. That means the record doesn't have the expected value and auto populate the field values before we inserted in database. We want to auto update assignment group assign to some field values we want to update, then we need to use before business rule. The second business rule is after business rule. So after business rule is executed synchronously. Synchronously means one transaction, for example, there are multiple transactions are at in the source side. Okay. So how these transactions are going to called means, for example, first transaction is executed, then the second transaction will start. Okay. If first transaction was not completed, the second transaction will not start. This is nothing but synchronous. The first one is completed, then only the second transaction will initiate to start. If second is completed, then only the third transaction will start. So this is nothing but synchronous. Okay. So after business rule is support synchronously. It execute synchronously. So the main aim of the after business rule is to update the information on related objects. That means to update whenever after business rule logic is executed. So it mainly update the related list records, not on the form. Okay. Especially after business rule is suitable for to update the related related list. Okay. So based on, for example, whenever any incident is created and that incident state was changed to in progress. For example, we want to create one task. So the task is auto created with help of this after business rule. So after update, okay, I want to do something on my related records. Then after business rule is suitable. So after business rule logic execute immediately after a database operation occurs. Okay. So here in the picture, user updated, okay, and saved or updated, then record is inserted in the database. After that, immediately my after business rule logic is initiated. Okay. Either insert or update whatever anything after data is stored into the database, then my logic is initiated. And before this form returned handover to the user, in between time my logic is executed. For example, if user updated state as in progress, okay, so my logic is he updated and hit the save button. So immediately my logic is executed and create a one task in the related list. So before handover to the form to the user, task is added on the related list. So after business rule, we use mostly for to update or create anything on the related objects. That means related list. For example, if a record has a child records, okay, we know parent and child relationship. If any record has child records, so in this case, we use an after business rule to propagate the change from parent record to the children record. For example, whenever parent record state was changed to closed, okay, then we want to close all the child records. In this case, we need to use after business rule. After update the parent, what are the child records for that parent one? All the records we want to set it the state as closed. These things, these automation, if you want to do, we can use after business rule. Okay. So these mainly we use in where? On the related objects. On the related list, creating task, updating work notes of child records. Okay. When parent record is updated and deleted some associated records after deletion of parent record, sending notification after updating some value on the form. These are the some examples for after business rule. The next one is async business rule. So here async business rule. Business rule is nothing but asynchronous business rule. Asynchronous business rule. So this logic is executed asynchronously. Executed asynchronously. So what is mean by asynchronously means, for example, in the source side, transaction 1 transaction 2, transaction 3, transaction 4. Okay. The target also all at a time are executed asynchronously. No need to wait for the first transaction. Okay. If any trigger point is happened on the source side, these 4 are immediately transferred to the target side. Immediately started. There is no dependency with previous transaction. Okay. No dependency with previous transaction. This can be executed asynchronously. Okay. This can be called as asynchronous. So this can be executed in asynchronously. We are not depending on anything. Whether the first transaction is failed or success, we don't bother. The second transaction will start. Then what is the here difference in the first case and second case? So once this is done, success, it may take, for example, 10 minutes. Then only the second one will start. Okay. After this is done, will start. If this is done again, it may take 20 minutes. Okay. First, for example, started transaction at 10 minutes it took. So this will be start 10:10. Okay. So this will be take 20 minutes. So this will be start at what time? 10 to 20 minutes, 10:30. Okay. This will be start at 10:30. For example, this will be take 15 minutes. Then transaction 4 will start at 10:45. Okay. So this is the synchronous. Is the synchronous. Transaction 1 will success in 10 minutes. Then will second one will initiate. Start at 10 a.m. Okay. So transaction 1 is initiated 10 minutes. 10 minutes it took. So after 10 minutes, the second transaction will start. Until the previous one is not completed, it cannot start the next transaction. But here, no dependency with previous transaction. This can be executed independently. So, for example, 10 a.m. is a start time for all the actions is at 10 a.m. All the transactions are initiated at 10 a.m. only. So now tell me what is the difference between synchronous and asynchronous? Observe.
Synchronous means
Yeah.
it executes when a first transaction will execute only.
Hmm.
Asynchronous means it is executes if the first transaction will not execute.
So here this is taking some time for completing of this transaction 10:45 all the transactions. Okay, 10:45 is the last transaction start time, but in this asynchronous last transaction start time is 10 only. All are executed at the same time. So asynchronous business rules are executed fastly. Executed fastly. So synchronous business rules are executed compared with the asynchronous as a slow. So non synchronous business rule means after business rule it may take time. Asynchronous cannot take that time. Immediately execute. We observed if you order anything on any e-commerce site like Flipkart or Amazon, okay, if you use that your card, okay, for payment purpose, if you use any card for payment, okay, So you will get some OTP. You will get some OTP. Before you receive the text message, that OTP is displayed on your mobile. If you use any another mechanism like Razer Pay something, then it immediately displayed OTP. Before you receive text message, this OTP, the OTP is auto populated on your mobile. If you enable auto option, okay, auto update OTPs. If you enable, you can see this option. OTP is before you receiving that uh, text message, bank from the text message, the OTP is automatically entered on the screen. So this is how this is happen means like asynchronous PR. Asynchronously this called due to asynchronous call that immediately OTP is auto populated on the screen. So here async business rule is executed and asynchronously. This is also called executed after database operations occurred. Okay. So after data is inserted or updated on the database, then asynchronous business rule is executed. So what is the difference between after and asynchronous means? After business rule, it will take some time, but async business rule, it cannot take any time. Immediately, the transactions are initiated. Time reducing. The frank of seconds are reduced or less compared with after business rule. So after business rule also used to update the information on related objects. So here there is a confusion always when we need to use after business rule, when we need to use async business rule. So use async business rule instead of after business rule whenever possible to benefit from the executing scheduler thread. That means here there is a time taking after business rule. Okay. In this case, you need to go with async business rule. This is about async business rule. Mostly async business rule we used in integration concept. Send REST APIs, send event. For this purpose, we use async business rule. But these two, after and async business rule, both business rules are executed after database operation. After database operation. There is a next one more business rule, which is display business rule. So compare with previous three, this is the different. The previous three was dependency with the database operation. That means inserting, updating, deleting, we use it. But display business rule, we are not using any database operation. So for what purpose this display business rule we used here, and what is display business rule means? This display business rule logic execute when form loads. Okay. This BR is executed when a form loads and and a record is loaded from the database. Okay. Whenever we are opening any form or we are opening any record in the database, at that time display business rule logic is executed. Okay. And here at this time display BR is executed. So this the logic, the execution must be complete before control of the form to the user. So the logic is executed before giving control to the user. Means form is loading at the time only the display BR logic is executed. Once the display BR logic is executed, then only control will give to user. So what purpose we use display business rule means display business rule we use, we pass the data from server to client. Display BR is used to pass the data from server to client side. For that purpose, we use the display business rule. If we want pass the data from server to client, there is a object we need to use. The object is G underscore scratchpad. With help of this G underscore scratchpad, we pass the data from server to client. So this scratchpad object, we need to use it any one of the client side script. Okay, any one of the client side. So this logic is executed every time whenever form open. If you want pass some information, logged in user location, logged in user details, anything you want to pass it, those details are not available on the form, but we are fetching from some other place. To fetch the data from server to client, there are three ways. Okay, one is G underscore form dot get reference. One more, glide ajax. We are going to discuss glide ajax second. The third one is display business rule with help of scratchpad. These are the three methods we can fetch data from server and pass it to client. Interview question. Okay. Which is the best suitable means? Either Scratchpad or Glide Ajax. Okay. This may take some time. More dot working is applied. This is we used in directly on the client side. Okay. G underscore Scratchpad we used on the display BR, the server side. Glide Ajax is the combination of client plus script include. Either second or third option is the best options recommended to pass the data from server to client. Okay. The first one may take some time. This is not recommended, but via this method also we can fetch it. So this is about display business rule. How these business rules are executed? What is the order? So here the order of the business rule execution. So there is a query business rule. Query business rule. Query is the operation. On the database side, we can see the query is the operation. Okay. Query means we are fetching something. So query whenever any BR is linked with query operation, that BR is executed first. Query means we are fetching data from the database. Okay. So here the first the query business rule logic is executed first. Then after display business rule. Then after before business rule. After that async or after business rule. The first query business rule, second display business rule, third before business rule, fourth either after business rule or async business rule. This is the business rule, the execution flow. So here we observed there are few variables are available on the business rule, mostly current and previous. These two global variables, current is indicating, for example, you created one BR on incident table. Okay. If you want to access any field on the incident table, you can use current object. Current to dot state. Now it fetch what is the value in the state on an incident table. Current object. Okay. Current is indicating this table fields and records. Okay. So current is the global variable which basically store the same record we are working on. Okay. So if we are working with the table at the incident, the current can access to all the fields as well as values. Okay. Similar to previous, the previous value of the field. This is nothing but old value and new value in client script. Where we can see old value and new value in the client script. In which type of client script? Pick. I said client script. script. There are four types. In which type of client script we can see old value and a new value. On change client script. On change client script, there are five parameters. Control, old value, new value, is loading, is template. Similar to in the business rules also, we have current and previous. Current is indicating it access to the table. Inside the table, records, fields, and values. Previous, it capture the previous value of the field. For example, one state value I moved from in progress to resolved. So the current value is the resolved, previous value is in progress. Then G underscore scratchpad, this object is available only on the display business rule. This is used to pass the information from server to client. We can use glide system, okay, to run the different methods on the business rule. We need to use glide system. gs.info, gs.log. Okay. If you want any information message pass it, we need to use the glide system object. Then the best practices. What are the best practices in business rule? Okay. So while writing the business rule, okay, write the conditional statement in the condition field. In the when to run, the section in below we can see conditional statement. We need to write at least one condition for every business rule. Why? Because unnecessary, if you are not written any condition, unnecessary, that logic is executed. There are two places we can write the condition in the when to run section, one more in the script part. So better ServiceNow recommended write conditions in initial level in the when to run section only. If you return the script part, what open, your BR is executed, loaded, and check the condition. So it may take some time. If you're written initially, it cannot load. Okay. So we need to write one condition. And if you want to pass the data from server to client, we need to use display business rule. And whenever is possible, we need to use async business rule to reduce the time. And don't use current dot update in before business rule. Okay. So what happen if you used current dot update again and again, the same logic, okay, is executed multiple times. It may cause the performance issue. So don't use current dot update in the business rule. This the update method trigger this business rule to run the same table for insert and update operation. The current dot update method, it triggers the business rule to run on the same table for insert time, update time. Okay. So this is leading BR calling itself over and over. So whenever any changes we made in the before business rule, automatically those are saved. No need to use current dot update. We can use in after business rule. After business best used for updating related, not the current objects. Okay. So don't use the current dot update. If you want to use update method, if you want to use the update method, we need to put some some properties, okay, which is set workflow. We need to put as the false. If it is necessary, we need to use current dot update. Then we need to pass. There is a before this method, one method as current dot set workflow as false. With the combination of these two only, we need to use. Otherwise, we cannot use current dot update in the business rule. Okay. So this is about theoretical part about business rule. Okay. Now you can see differences between async business rule and after business rule. Async business rule execute asynchronously, after is executed synchronously. So async, the system returns the control to the user immediately whenever the process runs in the background. But the control is happened once completion of the transaction. So improve the user experience by preventing the delays. But here there is a delay we can observe in after business rule. So long running process, updating related objects, same immediate updates on the same record, task with the immediate feedback. So these are the differences between after and async business rule. So this is the theoretical part about business rule. If you want to implement anything, the logic you want to write it, we need to use server side script. If you want to implement server side script, we need to aware server side APIs, which are glide record, glide system, glide date, glide data and type. We need to aware. Okay. So just remember, check this business rule. What is the business rule? Okay. And theoretical part. Tomorrow we are going to discuss about server side script. Okay. Then we can implement that logic into the business rule concept. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Any question here on business rule?
Well, it's all theory, so as of now, no.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. We'll have session on tomorrow. Okay. Same time, 9 to 10. We'll connect.
Anil, I won't be available tomorrow. I
Oh,
have somewhat.
okay. Yeah. Fine. If you are available any weekend, okay, we'll discuss. At least we'll take some 2 hours session and try to complete this one of the API.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.